And God called Moses from the burning bush. He called in a still, small voice. And he said, Moses, listen, and he answered and he said, Moses, Moses. And Moses answered and said, Lord, who, here am I. And the voice of the bush said, Moses, draw not nigh, take off your shoes, for you're standing on holy ground. And Moses stopped where he stood, and he took off his shoes, and he looked at the burning bush, and he heard the voice, but he saw no man. And the voice spoke again, and the voice of thunder, and he said, I am the Lord God Almighty. I am the God of thy fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob. And Moses hid his face. And God said to Moses, he said, I've seen the awful suffering of my people down in Egypt. I watched their hard oppressors, the overseers and the tribes. The groans of my people have filled my ears, and I can't stand it no longer. So I'm come down to deliver them out of the land of Egypt. And I will bring them out of that land into the land of Canaan. Therefore Moses, go down into Egypt and tell, O Pharaoh, to let my people go. And Moses said, Lord, who am I to make a speech before Pharaoh? For Lord, you know I'm slow of tongue. But God said, I will be thy mouth, and I will be thy tongue. Therefore Moses, go down yonder to Egypt land and tell, O Pharaoh, to let my people go. So Moses with his rod in hand went down to Pharaoh, and he said, Thus said the Lord God of the Hebrews, let my people go. And Pharaoh looked at Moses. Pharaoh stopped still and looked at Moses. And he said to Moses, he said, Who is this Lord? I know all the gods of Egypt, but I know no God of Israel. So go back, Moses, and tell your God, I will not let this people go. Poor Pharaoh. He has all the knowledge of Egypt, and he never knew the one and the living God. Oh, Pharaoh. He's got all the power of Egypt, but he's going to try to test his strength with the might of the great Jehovah, the might of the Lord God of hosts, the might of the Lord mighty in battle. And God, sitting up on his high heaven, laughed at poor Pharaoh. Pharaoh called his overseers. Pharaoh called the drivers. And he said, put heavier burdens still on the backs of the Hebrew children. And the people showed to Moses, and they said, look at Moses. You've been to see Pharaoh, but look and see what Pharaoh's done to us now. And Moses was troubled in mind. And God said, go again, Moses, you and your brother Aaron, and say, thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, let my people go. And Moses and Aaron with rods in hand worked many signs and wonders. But Pharaoh, he called his magic men, and they worked wonders too. And so Pharaoh's rod was hard, and he would not let God's people go. And God rained down plagues on Egypt. Plagues of frogs and lice and locusts, plagues of blood and boils and darkness, and other plagues besides. And every time God moved the plague, Pharaoh's heart was hardened. He would not let God's people go. And God said, listen now, Moses, there's one more witness of my power I'll give hard-hearted Pharaoh. This very night, about midnight, I'll pass over Egypt land. In my righteous wrath will I pass over and smite their firstborn dead. In the night will I pass over, and a cry went up out of Egypt, and Pharaoh rose in the middle of the night, and went to Pharaoh, and he said to Moses, go forth from among my people, you and all the Hebrew children. Take your goods and take your flocks and get away from the land of Egypt.
Praise.
Freedom. And right then, Moses laid them out. with all their goods and all their flocks. And God went on before a guiding pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And they journeyed on into the wilderness, till they came on down to the Red Sea. But in the morning, they missed the Hebrew children. 400 years. 400 years they held them down in Egypt land, held them down under the driver's lash, held them down without money and without price. And it might have been Pharaoh's wife that said, Pharaoh, look what you've done. You let those Hebrew children go. Now who's going to serve us now? Who's going to make our bricks and mortar? Who's going to plant and plow our corn? And who's going to get up in the chill of the morning? And who's going to work in the blazing sun? Pharaoh, tell me that. And Pharaoh called the generals. The generals called the captains. And the captains called the soldiers. And they hitched up all the chariots. 600 chosen chariots of war. Wow. 2,400 horses. Yeah. The chariots are all full of men with swords and shields and shining spears, battle bows and arrows. And they pursued the Hebrew children on to the edge of the Red Sea. Now Hebrew children looked back, saw Pharaoh's army coming, and the chariots were like a rumbling like a thunderstorm. The whirring of the wheels was like a rushing wind. The horses made a cloud that dark the day, and the glittering of the spears was like a rushing wind. And Pharaoh and all the Hebrew children, they all lost faith. The Hebrew children, they all lost hope. Deep Red Sea in front of them, and Pharaoh's host behind. And they grumbled and mumbled among themselves, were there no graves in Egypt? And they wailed aloud to Moses, saying, slavery in Egypt was better than to come to die here in this wilderness. But Moses said, stand still, stand still, and see the Lord's salvation. For the Lord God of Israel will not forsake his people. The Lord will break the chariots. The Lord will break the horsemen. He'll break Egypt's sword and shield and battle bows and arrows. He'll know this day who is the God of Israel. And Moses raised God over the Red Sea. And God, with a blast of his nostrils, blew the waters apart. And the waves rolled back and stood up in a pile. And left a path through the middle of the sea, dry as the sands of the desert. And Moses and the Hebrew children all crossed over to the other side. When Pharaoh saw them crossing dry, he dashed on in behind. Old Pharaoh got about halfway across, and God unleashed the waters, and the waves rushed back together. And Pharaoh and all his army got lost, and all his hosts got drowned. And Moses sang, and Miriam danced, and the people shouted for joy. And God led the Hebrew children on till they reached the promised land. Listen. Listen. All you sons of Pharaoh, who do you think can hold God's people? When the Lord God himself has said, let my people